It's the Final Word Daily, coming to you live from Florida with me, Cameron Ponsonby, and, incredibly excitingly, my friend, confidant, mentor, Daniel Norcross. This show, as ever, is brought to you by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City, and we're actually going to start with the Nepal-South Africa game, because it was a very exciting match that South Africa won by a single run, but Daniel's going to tell you all about it in 30 seconds.
South Africa are the chokers, aren't they? They always do it. They always do it. But no, they've handed on the mantle to Nepal, who choked in catastrophic fashion at the back end of a game that they really should have won. Had they done so, they would have kept alive their really burgeoning hopes of making it through to the Super 8s with a win against Bangladesh in their last game. But they didn't. South Africa crawled to a miserable 117. Nepal, they had the game in the bag. And then Tabriz Shamsi, the man who is the forgotten man of this World Cup, picked up 4 wickets in a chaotic ending. There was a crazy run out. People failed to dive. Enormous sixes were hit. But at the end of the day, it was heartbreak for Nepal.
And it was actually also a very big result for the competition, because had Nepal got over the line, had they won that match against South Africa, who of course had already qualified, they would have had a shootout against Bangladesh to make that Super 8 stage. And with Afghanistan through, with the USA through, it's wide open.
Well, it would have done all sorts of things for qualification for some teams who aren't going to make it into the Super 8s this time. Some big names, who knows how Pakistan might have been affected, or Ireland might have been affected, for example, because Nepal, if they got through to the Super 8s, would be guaranteed qualification for the next World Cup. It was an enormous shame, really. I thought huge crowd, very excitable Nepalese crowd, and they had the real opportunity there to pull a surprise win over South Africa, who made a change finally. They left out Keshav Maharaj. They brought in Tabriz Shamsi, and on the BBC Sport website and app, every ball of every game available. BBC TMS on.
Do you work for the BBC?
I have done.
Occasionally. I'll never do that.
Their bowler to watch was Tabriz Shamsi. Well, maybe they were right after all. You could watch him in the first 3 games. You'd never have found him. He wasn't in their side in New York. Really, they should have picked both spinners. Had they done so, maybe Nepal wouldn't have got quite so close. But it was his 4 wickets that swung it. And the sadness of it was that, they needed under a run of ball at the business end. They'd battled so manfully with the ball themselves to restrict South Africa to that rather meagre total. And then, despite a 108-metre 6, yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that here first, 108 metres for the Nepalese opener.
It wasn't enough. I think we have to focus in on the last ball. So if you haven't seen this, it was a remarkable ending to the match. So 2 runs were required off the last 2 balls, and Gulsen Jar, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, swings and misses. Tries to ramp the penultimate ball of the match, misses, 2 off 1 required.
They don't run through to the keeper.
They don't run, which I'm very confused about. Then final ball of the innings, he misses again. They set off, but Jar is running down the middle of the wicket.
Oh dear.
Quinton Togok throws, it hits the batter in the back, and at the moment he gets struck in the back, he kind of stops and he pauses, and he doesn't really know his whereabouts. And little does he know, the ball has bounced off and rebounded to Heinrich Klaasen, who's been running in from cover, and then he runs him out. So he was out by millimetres, by inches, and had he continued running, it would have been quite a. Because he hasn't.
Oh yeah, because then you'd have had the obstructing.
He hasn't changed his course, but he was running down the middle of the wicket. And Bartman, who'd bowled the final over, he had head in his hand. So did Marco Jansen, because they thought that was the game done. The ball had hit the batter, but as it happened, you then had this heartbreaking moment where this poor lad's kind of stopped running and effectively cost not the win, but a super over and potentially qualification. But I think it is really disappointing for the tournament that Nepal haven't made it through, because they have kind of been one of the sub-genres of the competition. Yes, so far it's been a very exciting tournament on the pitch, and we have had very good crowds kind of in general across the board. Like in Guyana, there's not been many people there. Barbados has probably been less full than anticipated.
New York was absolutely rammed.
But the 2 matches that Nepal had in Dallas were phenomenal. And the match against Netherlands in particular, where you go, it's Tuesday morning, 10:30 a.m. It's going to be empty, isn't it? We're in Dallas, Texas, for 2 associate nations to play each other in a group stage game. No one's going to be here. And actually, I think it showed further this kind of idea that Nepal are the coming cricket nation. And if you were a trendy cricket fan, you're all across this and you'll roll your eyes at people going like, oh my God, I didn't realise they're so well supported. I'd just seen the photos from Kathmandu. But actually, it's coming, it's spreading. They are the coming force.
Oh, I think without a doubt Nepal are going to be an increasingly notable force in cricket. They're going to get to do what Afghanistan did, but with not necessarily much better resources. Neither country is particularly well resourced. They don't have an awful amount of money. They'll get less than Afghanistan because they're a full member. But they've got such a massive fan base. Out here in the States, a whole load of people flew in from all over the States to come to Lauderhill to watch a game that got abandoned. And the fans stayed and sang the national anthem, which is weird, for some time afterwards. Then they all decamped over to Dallas, and they've got this really important moment, and how much it meant to them. They're weeping. They were weeping buckets, and it really did matter because it was quietly under the radar. They had a genuine chance of qualifying. Had they beaten South Africa, it was a straight shootout between them and Bangladesh. That game is still to come. It makes, annoyingly, no difference to their chances of qualification for the next World Cup. They're going to have to go through the whole rigmarole all over again. USA having taken one slot in next year's World Cup, that brings Canada and Bermuda into play. One of those two sides you'd imagine would go through. For the Americans, it's great for Canada because had the USA not gone through, then that would have meant that they'd have been battling with both Bermuda and the USA. But for Nepal, sadly, it makes no difference. They can win their next game, and I find that a little bit annoying. Don't you think that, you know, and there's the other thing about the sort of the binary nature of the game, right? If you lose to South Africa by one run in a game you should have won,
you're rubbish. Go home.
You don't get any style points. It just counts as nothing.
Get them gone.
Whereas in a way, there should be like, I reckon.
Do you want losing bonus points? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, what I'm after is 10 points per game to be distributed on the basis of
results and flair.
Yeah, so you'd like get 4 for that game. You get maybe 4.5.
Can it be? I want it to be entirely subjective. I don't want it to be correlated with. I want it to be like how the county championship used to be awarded back in the 19th century, when the writers just used to decide who had been the best team, who they'd enjoyed watching the most, which is an incredible feat. But I do think it's an important point that had Nepal gone through, you basically then get 3 more occasions, you get 3 more events where the scale of their support and their status within the game is then reinforced on a global scale rather than just in subsections of Twitter, in effect. And I think that's incredibly frustrating.
It's not just Andrew Nixon and Andrew Leonard. It's not just the two
exactly
talking about Nepal.
And Andrew Leonard who was on this show a matter of days ago, talking about the kind of the Associate Nations. I interviewed him for a piece on Nepal cricket as well, and he was kind of explaining that Nepal, what they've got right now is they have a good team off the pitch as well as on the pitch, and so you're seeing kind of decisions at management levels that are kind of benefiting the teams, organisations. They're growing as a commercial entity as well, and basically all the horrible buzzwords that are necessary at some level are now kind of coming up to match the kind of talent on the pitch. But I know you often ask about Nepalese demographics in America, and so that's exactly what I thought, and so I wrote a piece on it for Cricinfo. But I want to relay some of it here because I think it is actually very interesting. In that
you really are Nick Friend's friend, aren't you?
I'm a great mate of mine. But I'll do this in 30 seconds in the final word summary. So, but people go, where are these fans coming from? How are there 5,000 Nepalese Americans in Dallas? How is there such a big fan base in Florida? The Nepalese American community is the fastest growing Asian population in America. Exactly.
Who knew?
At the turn of the century, there was about 7,000 Nepali Americans. Now there's over 200,000. Some estimates has it at 300,000. And basically,
that's a 3,000% increase.
It is indeed, and the reason it's changed is I'm going to skip that bit. It's not important. But what is relevant, and it's relevant for the growth of the game in America, is the reason the game's growing at the moment is having a bit of a boost is because effectively what you're having second and third generation South Asian families who are like, I want my kids to play cricket, and so that's where the grassroots of the game is starting to happen now. The Nepalese community is just 20 years behind. It's a generation behind. So the oldest people of the kind of Nepali Americans will be about 40, 45. So they're only really just having their kids at an age where they're starting to play. And so what you're going to see in the next 20 years, 30 years, when you're talking about whether this game is going to grow in America, the Nepalese community will be a very, very important factor in that, because it is already growing. In Dallas, for instance, they now have 3 or 4 kind of Nepalese teams, and it's expanding. So when we all talk about this whole will cricket work in America, I am a believer in it, because part of me, and this feels probably a bit too strong, part of me just thinks it's almost inevitable.
What have you seen in its face?
I've seen.
That's why you're a believer.
You know what I've realised? In the last year of my life, I've spent two of those months in America covering cricket, which is unusual.
It is unusual.
I can't say I've ever predicted it.
And
but
may it continue?
Maybe.
Really rather jolly. Perhaps not in Lauderhill, though.
I like.
Well, I'd like to see some cricket in Lord Hill. We'll come to that in a minute. We haven't tackled the not particularly tall elephant in the room, who is Sandeep Lamichan.
Yes.
A controversial character for reasons that you all know, and we can't be bothered to go directly into. He's been found innocent, but was not granted a visa to get into the United States, and so he couldn't play in, well, one game that got rained off and one game that didn't.
Yeah.
He could not play in the United States, but he managed to make a backdoor entry, as Led Zeppelin might say, via Toronto. He pulled up to the bumper baby, not in his long black limousine, but just in a plane from Toronto to make it into the Caribbean. And he played in yesterday's game. It's a source of some controversy. He played yesterday's, and he will presumably play the last game against Bangladesh. And whatever the rights and wrongs of that, and whatever you feel about him, it does make a difference to their bowling lineup. He didn't take a wicket yesterday, but
he went for
kept
18, didn't he?
For 18 in 4 overs. And they're stronger with him, aren't they, as a cricketing side?
Well, he's their most recognisable player for both good and very bad reasons, and everything that's gone in that part of the Lamichan story. What I found remarkable was in Dallas, there was basically confusion over whether Nepal had listed a 14 or 15 man squad.
Oh, is that right?
And
They
kept a space, but it wasn't being it wasn't being confirmed. So I had an amusing moment in Dallas where I was asked to ask the Nepali media manager, have you named a 14 or a 15 man squad?
It's fun, I bet.
Yeah, I got the text and I went, I don't really want to do that, but we'll go and have a go. And I went and I saw a guy in Nepali trackies. I was like, hi mate, do you have a media number for media contacts or anything? I want to ask about like the size of your squad basically, and like is Lamichan coming or not, blah blah blah. He went, oh no mate, media contact somewhere else. And I was like, oh okay, could you have a number? I was like, he's like, I don't have it, you'll have to catch him another time. Someone overheard this and they went, I reckon I can help you out. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to look for the Nepali media contact. And the bloke pointed at the bloke I was talking to. I went, it's in there. And the guy went, yeah, you've got me. And he said they'd named, I think something like they'd named a 15-man squad, but not everyone was present yet. They're having a few visa issues. And I went, I wonder what that means. I wonder what that means. Well. I did work out, and it was very unusual because Lamichan arrived in the Caribbean and just like posted a photo of himself on Instagram, I think, and everyone was like, oh. So he is playing. That's how that's happening. Right. To move on from Nepal to South Africa, 4 wins from 4.
Yes.
Are they good? I don't know if they're good. They've won all their matches though.
Well, no one can tell, and there's a good reason for that. And it's because they played all their matches on particularly awkward pitches. And we all know that South Africa's point of difference lies in their batting. Their bowling is superb, but there are other superb bowling attacks. India's attack is superb.
Yep, I heard about them.
To me, India and South Africa are the 2 most rounded sides in the competition. In that, I think they've got the 2 best bowling attacks, and I tend to think the best bowling attacks will win in T20. And I think because India are playing, if they get to the semi-final in Guyana, and have been able to name their squad with that in mind, they've got a couple of wrist spinners. It is remarkable that. Well, it just is what it is, but it means that they've got a couple of wrist spinners that can come in. So they've got a really good flexible bowling attack. South Africa have got such a strong pace attack, but their batting lineup, which gives them that point of difference, the likes of Klaassen, Markram, de Kock, top 6 really, because they actually sort of fall away a little bit once you get to Janssen at 7, hasn't had any chance to prove its form and its worth, because they've been playing in New York, where the pitches have equalised really the contest, and ball has been very much so on top of bat that sides can get close to each other, which perhaps don't have quite the same quality. So, for example, Klaassen and Markram haven't been able to show what they can do. David Miller did briefly in New York, but de Kock only in tiny moments. So I think it's really hard to tell, and I'm a bit concerned that the pitches in the Caribbean are showing signs that they may emulate those in New York, which will be great for the USA in the Super 8.
Yeah?
Do not discount them. They could be a very awkward prospect. I don't know what to say. South Africa, I think they're a really good team. We always think they're going to do well. They never make the final. So
I've got an awkwardly placed preview that I wrote for the Radio Times. Very fine publication. And so I got one thing really right, where I was like, dark horses. I went USA. I think they're much better than people realise. I did indeed. There's written proof of it. Thank you very much. But a 2 centimetre scroll lower goes flops South Africa.
Oh dear.
So what can you do? You win some, you lose some.
And the Lord taketh away.
Well, they're incredibly out of form. People like Norcross had a really quite poor record for his standards going into this competition. He's performed extraordinarily well. They do have this incredibly deep, exciting, powerful batting line. Deep's the wrong word. Powerful batting lineup. So basically, what we're saying is they've won the games all the games that they've played. That's good. If they're going to be used to winning as a habit. Let's just talk in cliches. Yeah, done. That's fine.
Or don't peak until you get to the final.
That's absolute bollocks.
The two cliches don't work. I mean, look at India in the 50 over World Cup. What do they do? They win 10 games, and then it was the 11th that scuppered them.
The USA's Aaron Jones, I think he'd been out of runs before the World Cup, and he went, I just wanted to peak. I was like, no, mate, you just kept nicking off. Yeah. There's like, people always go, I was timing my run. He might not have been nicking off. He might have been getting out LBW. I don't know.
Bradman never peaked at the right moment.
He famously, Bradman was India's 2023 World Cup campaign. Lost the last match. There we go. Anyway, let's talk about India. We are in Florida. We have watched it rain we haven't watched it rain today, but such as the extreme nature of the weather is that we have not had any cricket today. India's group stage is complete, so too is Canada's, but you saw India throughout New York.
Yes.
What do you make of them? How are they shaping up? How are they tracking?
I think they're absolutely fantastic. They've got a cheat code. They've got the cheat code that is Jasprit Bumrah. They've got a wonderful bowling lineup, and they've got resources in their squad, as I mentioned earlier, to be able to adapt to different conditions. When spin needs to come into it, Yuzi Chahar will come into it. Akshay Patel and Ravindra Jadeja didn't get the opportunity to show how awkward they can be because actually the New York wicket didn't require it. They've got superb seamers. Their batting lineup is awesome. I mean, Virat Kohli is not fired at all.
Yeah.
He faced about 9 balls in the competition. But
it's quite funny.
Well, he's playing on a really horrible pitch in New York, so you don't get to see the
good
best
players,
of him.
Good players play, make it work.
Rohit Sharma at the top of the order. These are last hurrahs probably for these two, so I expect them to go out with a bang. And Surya Kumar Yadav is the most innovative batter in T20 World Cricket at the moment. I think they've got every base covered. Unfortunately for them and for every team, T20 is a capricious beast. She's a cruel mistress. She brings tears to your eyes and blood to your shoulders.
Blood to your shoulders?
Yes, I know. To your shoulders of all places.
How does that work?
Well, it's necessary, or else your shoulder would simply get gangrenized and fall off. But it just brings more than normal. And the result is anything can happen. I mean, up to a point, not literally anything. I mean, Virat Kohli can't suddenly turn into a caribou. But I suppose there is an alternative universe in which that happens, but it ain't going to happen. So the game is not played on a computer. The game is not played on paper. But you would expect with Super 8s, with a league format, they're going to be in a semi-final. Anything can happen in a semi-final. A lot could depend, we don't know until we get there, on who wins a toss. You'll remember the UAE T20 when it was win, toss, win, match. You win, toss, bowl, and that was it, you know. And sides that were better than others just simply got blown away because it was virtually impossible to grip the ball. It won't be like that here, but until we see the conditions, it's hard to be certain whether there are extraneous factors that can scupper any of the teams and how important the toss will be. But they're a great all-round side.
Given you work for the World Feed this tournament and therefore an employee of the ICC, I'm entirely sceptical of everything you've just said there. I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I think there's a lizard, by the way, running around by our feet.
Well,
It's I don't mind lizards, so I'm actually not too bad.
Lizards, but it's got a perky little mien.
Right, so you're saying India's good, that's controversial. Let's have a quick nod to Canada.
Yes.
I think basically, I was very disappointed for them today because what Canada have missed out on today is someone leaving that pitch and having the anecdote of a lifetime, and they can say for the rest of their lives, I got out Kohli. I hit Bumrah for 4. Yeah. And that's effectively, maybe that's being a disservice to them saying that they wouldn't have won, but I reckon India would have won. They beat Ireland. They probably could have beaten the USA. They're very close to having a very successful competition.
They would have beaten the USA if it wasn't for a rogue over by Dutta, I'm afraid.
Oh, that was so bad.
That was a bad over.
I forgot about
that. Kickstarted Aaron Jones's fame. It
did indeed.
Into the man who... I saw a fan banner in New York that said Aaron Jones is my role model, and it really all started with an above waist high full toss from Dutta, a bit yippy. They got smashed.
Oh,
in the crowd, and suddenly, a man who Peter Della Penna had told us on air shouldn't be batting, shouldn't be in the side. If he's going to play, he's got to be in the top 3.
He's not Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, there's elements of him sometimes that do that. He shouldn't be batting at 5 or 6.
Yeah.
He did, and then he hit 10 sixes. It's basically, it's these fractional moments that can make all the difference, and they made the difference to Canada. I was impressed by Canada. I was impressed by Johnson.
Ooh,
I like the look of him.
I'm gonna talk to
Taylor.
him about in my Hall of Fame. So let's save Johnson.
Okay. Well,
And why don't we take that moment to move on to the Hall of Fame? You've got an ad read, I believe.
Is it time for a break?
Have a break.
Welcome back. So, Super 8s are coming. You know they are. But if you're looking for Super Eats,
Whoa!
look no
Don't get
further than Westfield, London. Eat your way around the T20 World Cup in less time than it takes to delete the angry tweets about Australia not respecting the spirit of the game that you'd preemptively written in your notes app. Enjoy the butter chicken bomb.
Ooh.
Binder's Eatery.
I will.
It's not going to do that. The incredible jerk flavours of Rhythm Kitchen. Slow smoked American barbecue at Big Easy, and Australia's own Donut Time Donuts, with donut spelt the proper way, followed by donut spelt the wrong way.
Wow, interesting.
The only food you won't find is...
What am I not finding?
Guess?
Pizza.
It's from New Zealand.
Oh.
But who cares? Because you won't find them in the Super 8s either. Ha ha! Ha Kiwis! Ha ha! On boundary count back. Oh, sorry, shouldn't have said that. That's not true.
Goodness me.
Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. Paint with all the tastes of the wind.
Wonderful. And I'm going to throw it straight back to you for your final word Hall of Fame moment.
Well, today, my Hall of Fame moment was seeing 4 industrial-sized heaters blowing heavily and aggressively on one spot, and lots of ground staff trying to do imaginative and brilliant things, and then umpire Kettleborough at 11:30 saying, yeah, forget it. We're done. The latest the game can start is 2:15. There's no way we're going to get a game on here. 2 3/4 hours. No, the ground staff need time for tomorrow's game. So that was my Hall of Fame moment. It gave me a chance to have a nice curry and get here, and that's why, because we're worried about the rain, we're here in my hotel room. Well, not room.
It's not your room.
We're at the hotel that I'm staying in the middle of absolutely nowhere, with no bar and no restaurant, but there is a shopping mall around.
I hope you cheer up at some point. It's okay. Okay.
When I leave to go to Barbados.
Right.
If I leave to go to Barbados, because our flight's from Miami, and that's underwater.
Yes, it is. I'm gonna say my Hall of Fame moment to lift the spirits of the listeners and the viewers. Aaron Johnson. So I was watching his preview package on the ICC broadcast. He mentioned he'd played 8 years of semi-professional cricket in the UK, which effectively means he was being overseas. And I went, brilliant. I love nothing more than looking up people's kind of surprising club statistics. Shane Dowrich, he's having a stint in the UK at the moment. He's had it for a few years, yeah. Aaron Johnson, so he played for 2 years, 2 of those 8 years, for Shepherd's Bush in the Middlesex Leagues. I think it was 2011, 2012, and they are some of the most wonderful scorecards you'll ever find. In his first year, he averaged about 56, and he was striking at about 140 throughout. And there are these matches where they're chasing 190 and he gets 130 or something and they lose. And there's matches where they chase 170 and they win by 3 wickets and he's got 130 of them. And I just implore you, if this is your kind of cup of tea, if this is the type of thing you enjoy, which if you're a final word listener, I think probably will be, go Aaron Johnson, Shepherd's Bush play cricket and enjoy a really sad Badgery cricket session.
Do you know, I might just go and do that myself.
Wonderful. Today has been today, but today has also been the final word with me and Daniel Norcross. It's been a pleasure, it's been an honour, it's been a treat, and I'm sure Adam and Jeff and a plethora of guests will also be with you very soon. Goodbye.